that, I'll invite Samantha and Mr. Yogi to come on the stage. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, my name is Yogi. I'm here with the lovely Samantha, and we'd like to talk to you about how different we are, and at once how we came together in talking about our books the other night for the first time. If that's okay with you, we'll just have a very organic conversation and take it from there.
Agreed.
The question that I get often is, what inspired you to write this book? I think it's very cliche. If we take the next step in that same trajectory, the question would be, who in this book do you most relate with? So maybe tell me about Joy, tell me about others, and then tell me about yourself.
Now that's a very different way to start because everyone asks me the first question. So really the one character that I feel very connected to is Ollie. So Ollie is a little turtle, and he has only 3 flippers. Every turtle has 4 flippers, but he has 3.5 flippers. I think I'll be more precise. And 3.5 flippers means he's a little injured, a little handicapped. So why this character, Yogi, is important to me is because all of us at some point in our life lose some parts of us along the way. And we are broken, things happen to us. And I think we always feel we are not good enough. And that's what also Ollie felt. At some point in my life also, even at the point before I started my spiritual practice, and at some points even now, I feel not so good. But then there's something more stronger, a life force that comes through. So yes, Ollie is something that is close to my heart. But then, every character in this book, there's a part of me. I think you can, if you read the book, I feel there's a little part of me in every character. For example, Joy, who's the alcoholic. I'm not an alcoholic, but my editor had a big issue with it because I love my mosquito nets. Whenever I travel with my mosquito nets. So in the book, I had Joy carrying a mosquito net wherever. So yes, I have.
I noticed. You mentioned spiritual practice. I don't want to get too personal if it makes you uncomfortable, but I think if we really want to get to the core of the book, we have to speak about spiritual practice. What does it mean to you? I know that in the biography or the bio that was read, we didn't really get into that side of you. We didn't talk about the other things that you practice and the things that you do. Would you feel comfortable telling us about that? I think it's a big part of the book.
Completely. I'm born a Catholic, so which means I was born and I was initiated into being a Christian and then a Catholic. The church is very, very strict about other religions, even though my father was a Hindu and I'm born in India. And I followed all the traditions that were because my father being a Hindu, I followed all Diwali, I celebrated Diwali, I went to the temple, and I still do. And my mom being a Catholic, I go to church. I think I have the best of both worlds. But then, like in the book, also in the biography, I said something happens. In our life, always something happens. In every human's life. And in my life, my father passed away. I think that's when death comes knocking on your door and you take a step back and you question everything that you are taught and you believe you've been told about. And I questioned religion. I think at that point was when I gave up on anything that was called God. And I didn't understand why my dad died. Why does death come I didn't understand a lot of things. Even though I had a religious practice in the sense that I used to go to church, I used to say my rosary like a good girl, and then my dad died. I prayed so much and he died. And when he died, I didn't realize, like, we are not as humans. We do not train our children of how. We teach them how to get married, how to be a good wife, how to be a good human being and a citizen, but we never teach them how to combat death and how to go through death. How to survive after the loved ones die.
Or to embrace it.
Yes?
Or to embrace it.
Embrace it. And that's what happened to me, was that when death happened, I got lost and something broke. And that's when I think I started praying at some point to say that, please, because I started getting sick. Like we say, sickness is a manifestation of your thoughts. And the grief led to me getting extremely sick. And at some point, with 8 antacids a day, my kidneys were ready to pack up. And that's when I got introduced to energy healing. And energy healing slowly led to a practice, a spiritual practice, which is mostly practiced by indigenous tribes across the world. It's called shamanism. I started as a neo-shaman, which means everyone go to, a teacher and I want to learn shamanism. And it was energy healing. But when I read on the website, energy healing, learn how to heal yourself. And that's what I said, okay, I need to learn how to heal myself. My mother, Blossom Kocher, is also a very, she's an aromatherapist, but also a very, a person, a human being that is very connected into wellness as well as healing practices. So I said, okay, let's go and do this shamanic course. And I took it for 1 year, Yogi, as just like, I'm learning something. And then I met my teacher.
What did people around you say, and did that affect you at all? All right, there's this often misunderstanding around shamanic teachings or words used like cult or...
So when I started, and I would say I'm into shamanism, they'll say, oh, it's tantric. And because you see, you're doing energy. It's a lot to do with energy. So is it tantric, or is it occult, or is it, when I say indigenous, people don't even understand the word indigenous. And we don't realize, but the indigenous people, even in our country, the oldest and the most ancient tribes, they're also known in Africa as the witch doctors, but in the medicine men, they are the ones that actually practice energy medicine, and they heal the community, they see things and they guide them. And they are still there, but over time, they've been, they're getting lost. So shamanism is a very old, it is religious, because what we believe in is the earth, the sun, the moon. Everything is connected. We believe in energy. There is a father god, there is a mother god. There is just energy. There is just divine. So yes, everyone have misunderstood it. So for my journey started with sickness, where I was nearly going to pop it, to finding a practice that made me stronger. And shamanism for me now is a way of life. It's how I live my life and how I can, I am in service of humanity and this earth.
It reminds me of what we spoke about on Friday. We talked about my guru, Pramukh Swami, and this idea of being in love, not just with people, not just with people that look like us or speak like us or think like us, which is a big thing in India and where I come from in America today, but to love people for that one reason, because we can see the divine within them, right? So when I first heard that we were going to be in conversation, I thought our books are so different. And then in this moment, as we're speaking, I'm starting to realize that there's so many similarities in the way that spirituality can build bridges with people, communities, and perhaps even nations. And
yeah, because honestly, when you die, Yogi, all I know, when my teacher, he's an 88-year-old man, when he died, his few last words to me were, It's not how much you make, how famous you become, how many books you write, how many famous people you know, or how much money you've gathered, or how did you leave your children wealthy or not. It's how much you loved. The parameter in the end is how much you loved. How much did you give yourself?
So, when you speak of love, as I was reading your book over the last week, I realized that there's a lot of trauma that you speak of through the different characters and their journey. How do you reconcile love and the sort of edginess, the sort of effects of trauma over that journey? Or is there that reconciliation? Is there ease in love? That's my question to you.
When we fall in love, all of us, it's roses and everything. And then comes the pain. You know, because the person's not like that and the person doesn't do things like that, and things happen. And then there's the pain. But what I've understood about love is that if you can look beyond that, when you love someone, however different they are, whatever is happening, they can do the worst. Love comes from a very higher source. There is no differentiation, there are no expectations, there are no boundaries, there is no do's and don'ts. You just love. And coming to that state is one of the most difficult, because that involves forgiveness, being humble, and your ego really takes the trash on that one. But yes, I agree with you that when you have trauma, it's very difficult to find love. But the universe gives you trauma so that you can find love.
That's a very good point. You touched on humility, ego. In my book, I call it I-less, being aham shunya in Sanskrit. How would you describe your journey as an author, all those lovely things that were just said about you, as a successful businesswoman who mingles in certain circles in Delhi and abroad, and then finding your own personal journey to humility, or being I-less, or being aham shunya, if I may use that term?
I must tell you, and thank you for even bringing this conversation up, because when you write, when I wrote the book, my son told me, "Oh, now you're going to become famous." Yeah, and oh, you have another feather in your cap. But I want to really explain, when you go into large hours of sadhana, you are told, you get messages. I think even you must have experienced it, and many people who do sadhana will experience this. You get a kind of a message, and you know you need to do something. And I was very clearly told that I need to write a book. And for the life of me, I didn't know what book I was supposed to write. And then at some point, I get an idea. Again, the mind starts working, and you think it's the mind, but it's something more stronger when you're connected. And I was told that I used to tell my son a little story about a turtle. And this turtle was called Ollie. And this turtle used to go and conquer the world and, fight the sharks and everything. And they said, take Ollie and just understand that, the ocean needs to be saved and the turtle needs to be saved. And I'm thinking, I asked my guides, I remember, why me? First and foremost, I do not know how to, I told you also, I'm not a literary genius. I do not know the difference between there and there. I don't know when to put commas. I don't know when to put full stops. I am an absolute nifang person when it comes to literature. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm supposed to write this story. So when I started my journey, there was no thought that I want to write a book and I want to become famous or anything. I just knew that I had to write a story so that I could save the turtle and I could get a message across. And every time I used to pray, like in our practice, our prayers are very intense. Many people in the Hindu system call it sadhana. Our sadhana starts very, very early in the morning. And after that, I would get out and I would write for an hour. This book is an absolute download. When I got the book ready and I was giving it around, I only know that I just had to get a message across. And I remember asking my guide, who will read this book? First and foremost, it's got turtle sharks, and then it's got humans on top, and and the message was that who needs this book will read the book. It's not about who and the quantity, it is why. And we want it written, and it was written. So honestly speaking, in my life, over time, I've understood that I come from a very famous lineage. When I just have to say my surname, doors open. Kocha, and I walk onto stage, actors, movie stars, everything is open to me. But I've understood after my practice, Yogi, is that we are born for a much larger purpose. It's not the I, it is the we. And we all are here for a larger purpose in life. We need to find that larger purpose. When we leave something that will only enhance the future, the present, and enhance this earth, not take away.
You keep using the word sadhana or spiritual practice. I don't want to turn this literary festival or literature festival into a katha session, but especially with a name like Yogi, that doesn't help. But tell us a bit, just very briefly, when you say sadhana, when you say shamanistic spiritual practice, to fight the ego, to find the self, to discover things or hear a voice of your spiritual master, what does that usually entail? So for me, if I may just, to give you an idea of maybe if I'm not articulating the question properly, bhakti is a big part of what I do. And so for me, bhakti is sharing, eating together with people, singing, right? I'm a musician. It's helping people. It's seeing the divine in others. So that kind of practice is what I try to do. And then obviously there's the sort of reflection that we do within. What is it for you? Is it similar? Is it different?
It's part of it is similar. But the most important thing is that when we get initiated by our teacher, there are two shamans. There is, as we call, the neo shaman, and then there is when I cannot call myself a shaman till I'm given a lineage. I come from the Peruvian lineage. I come from a 300-year-old lineage. Our teacher, before passing away, will train 6 to 10 people into the lineage. And when we take our initiation, our sadhana starts very, very early in the morning when everyone's sleeping, something like 3:30 a.m. And it is a massive energy practice. It is absolutely confidential. I'm not allowed to teach this. Only when it's time to go that we will pass on the lineage. Meditation is just a very small part of it, but it deals with a lot. We are superhumans, which means that we are made up of a certain DNA which is way, way superior. To activate the superhuman body and to activate our spiritual, our auric body, there are certain practices that we do. So that is what happens. And the next most important thing is that we pray. There are a lot of people who come towards, when they know what I do, is that, my daughter is tried to commit suicide, my husband passed away, this happened. We do not, in our practice, take money, but we pray. We pray for a long time for people and for their families to heal. That is how we give back. Because through our energy, you come to a certain energetic frequency that connects you. You become like a call center to a thing. So that is a part of it. And then comes the next part of our sadhana, is like what you said. We start doing things for the universe. We sing. We are with family. We do a lot of other things. So yes, it's similar to yours, but there is a very large part of, and then there is the self-reflection. And the self-reflection is a must for us every day, because till you do not heal yourself, you do not become a hollow bone. So the hollow bone means the divine has to flow through. It's like the flute. If the divine has to flow through, the air has to move out. So you have to become a hollow flute. So you're mainly working with a lot of reflection out here.
Thank you for sharing so much. I know there are so many misconceptions around that practice, so this makes a lot of things clear to me, and I'm sure our audience. Let's talk about Samantha, the author, for a second. You just were very transparent and open with us, direct in telling us that, well, I'm no author, I barely know the rules of grammar. What kind of work did you have to do to get this book to Rupa, to convince them to publish it? And don't tell me it was just your name, because I've
No.
read the book. It's a good book, and it's written well. How does it flow so well? What kind of work did you put in as an author?
So I must, my editor's not here, but I remember my editor is my good family friend, Sangeeta Jain. And I remember going up to her and I said, I've written 2-3 chapters. I would really like if you can see how it flows. So she said, yeah, it's got a good context. And I went through the narration of the story. And she said, I said, how do I go about this? Because I've not read a book. And she said, just write your heart out, darling. So, okay, fine. I wrote my heart out. And after around 40,000 words, she said, can I just now start editing? And she edited, and 23,000 words came back to my computer screen. And I cried my heart out, Yogi. I'm like, she first tells me, write my heart out, and then everything starts getting chopped down. And I asked her, is the story bad? So she says, no, I'm the editor. And I remember very clearly when I wanted to choose my editor, there were 3 options. And I chose Sangeeta because Sangeeta has a very strong spiritual background. Only I was very clear that someone who was spiritual had to edit this book. So fine, and then I remember sitting in prayer and asking my guides that, is she the right editor, first and foremost? Did I go wrong in choosing? Did I hear right? And the only thing I remember, the message coming is that once you've written the book, you need to let go. And that's what I did. I think I trust that the editor is going to do a good job and to let go of what you have written at some point. Someone else needs to take over, which are experts in that field. What I had was a story, and what I had was I knew how to write good English, okay? But without the full stops and the commas and the 100 there's and there. And then I had 20,000 ands, that's what she told, so, but that was my process, is that when I wrote, I gave it to the editor, she would chop, it would come back. And I would also like to confess that when I took the book, I went to 6 publishing houses. All of them refused, okay, including Penguin. Everyone refused. They said, this is spiritual fiction. Paulo Coelho rules the roost, and I don't know who's, it's just not happening. So I come from, I told you, I come from a family where I say, if you don't give me an award, I will have my own award ceremony. If you don't give me my publishing house, I would open my own publishing house. So I went and started all the whole process of opening my publishing house because I thought, okay, let's self-publish. And then someone asked me, a friend of mine, Vivek Mansukani, asked me, would you like to just show it to Rupa? And I showed it to Rupa. I said, I never even thought of Rupa, and Rupa took it within 15 days. I remember sitting with my publisher and he said, I hope no one else has it because I would like to talk to the person and take the book from him. And I was thinking, should I actually tell him that everyone refused? And then he didn't get back. But yeah, I've had my journey and I've got the first book out. But that's...
It's inspiring to many of us in the audience. Since we're talking about identities and the many caps you wear, let's talk about Samantha the professional. And how does that pour into the book? So we talked about you and your spiritual practice. We talked about in that journey. We talked about you as a person. We talked about you as an author. Let's talk about you as a businesswoman, managing director, CEO. I forget what your title is. I'm sorry. As someone who's worked.
It's just a title.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Makes no difference.
So it's a good thing I forgot. But your work with celebrities, Bollywood, fashion, etc. How does that sort of shape the journey or the characters in the book? Because at first glance, I don't see that Samantha in the book. That's my reading.
That's okay. When I started when my father passed away, I became the managing director from the fashion circuits of Bollywood and all Milan and everything. bang on came into, you know, into running a business. And I was put into a male dominated. And I had to dress up like a man, and I had to be a man, and I had to do everything, you know, like strong decisions. And it was just not me. It was traumatic. And I know that is one of the grief of not attending to my father's death. When you do not acknowledge grief and heal grief, I was running through that. And then the other thing is just being plucked from one different world and put into another was traumatic. To act and be like what you are not and what you are not to be was one of the reasons I started becoming sick. And most important thing I learned, Yogi, is that when you're not true to yourself, when you're not authentic, your body stops, your mind stops. And I think when I started my spiritual practice, before that, used to keep asking myself, why am I sitting on my father's chair? It actually should be my son. My son now is 26 years old, and he was trained for business. And my father used to always say, you know, when I pass away, he used to tell my son, you're going to sit. It was nothing of the sort that, you know, he was a male chauvinist or whatever. It was just that I was into a different line. So he knew the business aspect was going to be looked after by my son, but he went away early, and I was sitting there. And I used to keep questioning myself, why am I sitting here? What am I doing? Till when I went deeper in my practice, and I understood that I sit at a very powerful position. And our company, the Blossom Culture Group, does so many CSR activities, from, you know, cancer children to planting trees. And I realized that it stems from who I am. And also what my mother stands for. I think that legacy, and that's now I know that I sit in a position that I know I can turn things and change things and make the world a better place. So the managing director is not a managing director. It's just, I think Sam came into who she really was to be. Yeah, a vessel to bring the change. So the title is great because it really opens doors. But it's not something I'm really attached to. And in the book, Joy is a man who comes from a very high-powered job in London, and then he loses his son. Like we often have that, I lost my dad, but Joy loses his child. For a parent, we always think that, you know, the child will go on and we'll be the first to go. But he loses his child, and everything comes crashing down for Joy. He becomes an alcoholic. I think, you know, understanding at some point you can be at the most high-powered job, but there comes a realization that there is more that you need to do. And I think that is what happened. Joy, a part of Joy also is me. There.
I can relate to that because when I was about 25, 26, I was one of the youngest television anchors in New York City. And I had these starry eyes and thinking about what that future could behold for me. And when I spoke to my guru, one day he called me to Mumbai and he said, everyone makes money, everyone has fancy titles, and everyone can be on a billboard one day or another. But don't get attached to that because that comes and goes.
Yeah.
What can you do to give back to society? So he was a monk, and I automatically assumed that he was talking about becoming a monk. And he said, no, that's doing something for the community. What can you do for society at large? And that's when he talked about education. That's when he talked about service. That's when he talked about music, sharing that service and music as tools to talk about education, which is often rare in Ivy League university like Columbia. So I can relate to that journey. And so then my last question to you before I open the floor up for our worthy audience is, where do you find the ease in balancing all of these identities, right? So we talked about Samantha the author, Samantha the businesswoman, Samantha the professional, Samantha the human, Samantha the shaman, and so many other more Samanthas that we have not gotten into just yet. Where do you find that healing? We talked about the reconciliation between love, trauma, service. When all of that comes together, how do you become that vessel? How do you be at ease with who you are and who you may become?
Yogi, what I've understood in life is that, like it's believed that, we have already decided who we are going to get married to, who we are going to be, and how we are going to decide who our parents are going to be. There is already a flow that's going to happen. But we forget about it and we are born and we come down on earth. I've also understood that at some point in my life, I was in the fashion industry. I was ruling it. I went into the makeup industry. There are phases in our life. We have to evolve as a human being. What we do is we stop our expansion. Like a lot of times people say, I'm just so busy. I'm always so busy. And so I say, do you want to sing or you want to dance? Do you want to paint? Do you want to write? I want to write, but I don't have the time. And what I've understood with the little I know is that we shortchange ourselves. We prevent our own expansion. We can be the managing director, and we can also be an author, and we can also be a mother, and we can also be a humanitarian. We can also be a painter, a potter. We can do everything if you set your mind to it. But the whole thing is, how do you flow through it? And that is very, very important. If you're going to say, okay, from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, I'm going to do pottery, that's not me. When I feel the time, the urge comes in, I need to do pottery, I will go and do pottery. And then I will tell people, listen, I need to. And there are times where I just need to be on my own, and I will do it. I think we need to listen to our mind and our body, and when we get the urge, we need to do it. And we have to understand that we can be and do anything we want to do. And that is called the expansion of this human to become the superhuman.
That's a beautiful point, and please for Samantha. Let's open up the floor for questions. I think we have a few more minutes. Anyone have a question anyone we can get a microphone to? Gentleman over there in the second row.
Okay. Firstly, Yogi, I really enjoyed the way you moderated and ran it. And Blossom, Samantha, I totally loved the way you put it across, because when I was looking at the agenda, this was not a session I expected to attend, but I'm glad I came here, and I totally enjoyed it. My question is that as a person who's not ever actually read the book, and as an adult rather than a child, what is it that I would be able to take away from the book? Or what is the gift that you are trying to give the world through your book?
I have something that I've even written in the book. Can I have your name, please?
Yeah, my name is Nalin Savara.
Okay, Nalin, I have one thing that I've written in the book is that the story chooses the person who it wants to be written by, and the story chooses the person who it wants to be read by. Everyone will take away a different message from the book. There is something in the book for everyone, because everyone have a different set of experiences they've gone through in life. So your set of experiences will be different from the other person sitting next to you. But there is some message that is meant for you, and you will find it. So, Nalin, I would honestly just urge you to, even if you don't flip through the book, something will catch your eye. That is how this book has been written.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I want to also bring about the point, like I told you, that I was very, very happy when, when I chose my editor, Sangeeta Jain, to be my thing, because she had a spiritual. I was also extremely happy that Yogi agreed to be the moderator and to think, because only someone who can understand this genre could actually moderate this and really get. And so when we spoke about it, we are just so happy, because everyone at some point just became quiet here, and everyone, you're with us in our journey. So I think we both we did exactly what we wanted to and what we planned to. Thank you, Nalin.
Thank you so much. That's so beautiful an answer.
Anyone else? Excuse me, यहाँ पर दे दीजिए. I think we can give my mic. Then it'll come back here. It'll come back here. Don't worry.
My name is Amit. I'm an architect and also a part-time sculptor, painter. As you rightly said, that you want to do a whole lot of things. This thing about flowing through these various things that you want to do. How do you flow? Because what I've done last 20, 25 years, I've dedicated, say on a Saturday, 2 hours I'll paint. Like you said, I can't do that. I've tried to flow. I'm not able to. So is there a trick to it?
Yogi, would you like to answer that? No, you go first. And then I'm going to go because we spoke about it.
Again, I start with the disclaimer that everyone finds their own path. But what works for me is not a schedule, a rigid sort of structured kind of Excel sheet. I have a lot of friends who function in life with a checklist on an Excel sheet, and that's not me. But what I really try to do is listen to how I feel in the moment. And there are times when I feel like singing, so I don't sing professionally anymore. I studied with Pandit Jasrajji, the late Sangeet Martan Pandit Jasrajji, and there was this expectation that you have this opportunity, you should make something of it professionally. I never chose to, and he was okay with it because he knew that I only practiced, did riyaz, or I only sang when I felt the calling to do so. If someone asks me to sing now, if I do not feel it, I will say no, very politely, respectfully fold my hands and say I just cannot. So I think listening to yourself, to the same thing with my book. I was just telling Samantha that in 45 to 50 days I had a manuscript. It just sort of flowed because I listened to how I felt in that moment. And I wonder how you'd answer that question.
Amit, have you ever felt like having an ice cream? And do you go and get the ice cream? You're not flowing. But the thing is, that's how, it's just as simple as that. When you feel like having an ice cream, stop the car and go run and get the ice cream. When you want to tell your wife, you look beautiful today, please tell her. When you want to go and, go and put your foot in a puddle of water, do it. Flow. You want to go have a bath 3 times a day because you're feeling sticky, do it. That is flowing.
And what stops us is the cost associated with it, right, Samantha? This
Yeah.
idea that society tells you stopping your car in the middle of the day to have an ice cream is not productive. So, but that's a cost you pay for to feel and then to get into the flow. So I think, I don't know, Samantha, would you agree?
Yeah, and also because all I know is that if you don't bring in the child within you, you stop flowing. Have you seen children how they flow? You just have to look at the child. And smallest things, you should see the beauty in it. Like you've read about this, see the beauty and you'll get excited. But I've understood that before anything beautiful, I'll look at it and then become very critical and you're a person who will become more critical about a building and straight lines. But we forget about that in the imperfection lies the perfection. So please just flow. Any other question? You want the
Yeah, Samantha, thank you so much congratulations for your book, first
Thank
of all.
you.
And thank you for such a beautiful session. Yeah, we all were engrossed, totally. So my question is, I don't know whether it's a relevant question or not here. You mentioned about PLR, past life regression. You went past life regression, you mentioned,
Yeah, meaning going back, okay.
I don't know. So what kind of experience you get in there? Because it's a very confusing topic, right? That you can see some kind of pictures moving through your thoughts. What kind of experience you get there?
Honestly speaking, past life regression is not something that I mentioned about anything, but I will tell you what we do is that we do, at some point through our practice, we can access many, many lifetimes of ours. And that is through practice. And why we are accessing is reflection. We reflect what was our life lesson in that lifetime, and am I repeating that same pattern in this lifetime? How do we go through it? Sometimes you see images, sometimes people feel taste, smell, sometimes your body starts paining. There are different ways people will feel it. For my journey, it is mainly more visual, but everyone feels it in a different way. Some people will guide you through past life, but we are trained at a very strong level of how we can do it ourselves, and not getting too attached and carried away into what happened in our past life. Unfortunately, this is what happens. We get so attached to, I did this in my past life. You did it, it's over and done with. How can I live this life? And we really do not know. We are told that we have more lifetimes, but we really do not know. In this book, there's a character called Sironka. He's a Maasai. And in the Maasai, they only believe, the indigenous tribe of Africa, there is only one lifetime. It's how you live this life. So don't say in my next lifetime, oh, what happened in my past. The present is the most important.
Yeah, very beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Any other question? I think that's it. And I would also like to thank you, Yogi, for urging me on and saying and getting the value. And that is why I think people enjoyed this session. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Samantha, and thank you, Yogi ji, for a beautiful session. We did not expect this session this beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you once again.